I have got doctor clients who told me that once they hit a certain age, they either want to retire early or want to cut back on their clinical hours or workload. For example, right, woman specialist doctors. There's a client that told me that she will stop doing any baby deliveries or C-sections after age 50. Why? Because it's super taxing on the body, right? That is like you working two shifts every single day, right? Imagine the mental and physical stress. It's so intense. Of course, when you are younger, in your 20s, 30s, you can take it. But when you reach 50, well, it's just very unsustainable. Because if you are, doing baby deliveries as a doctor, can you imagine being on call 24/7? And if a patient like suddenly goes into labor in the middle of the night or in the wee hours early in the morning, like 4 a.m., and the hospital calls you, no matter what you are doing, you are sleeping, you are enjoying, you are chilling out, you just have to drop everything and rush back to the hospital. And the thing is, like when a baby decides to come, it just comes, right? You can't always schedule it. So being on standby like all the time until you are age 60, can you imagine sustainable or not? Right. And I also know doctors, it's other specialties who work like 7 days a week, like in private sector, starting at like 7 a.m. and finishing at 10 p.m. Of course, business is good, but then they barely have time for anything else, like for family. On weekends, they're on call too. And that's why they want to plan ahead, right? Looking beyond just the money that they can earn. So people thought money solves everything, but once you are there, it probably a new problem arises that you need to solve. And doctors in this kind of situation, they always think about, hey, can I invest like in stocks or properties, buy more insurance savings plan? But at the same time, when they got into this investment, most of them, not all, they wouldn't have too much of a time or mental bandwidth to really analyze things properly. And because of that, they often fall into this mediocre or really bad investment because of, if they are unlucky, they could encounter some predatory agents in the property or financial sectors, right? And some of these investments are not even legit. It appears to be legit, but it's not like regulated or approved by, the appropriate bodies. And some are really borderline scams. And many doctors have lost money because, they didn't know better, and they didn't have the time or mental bandwidth outside of their work to really think things through, or someone to advise them. And they realize that really they can't really keep up with this kind of pace or this kind of life until they are 60 or 70, although they can work until that age, right? Because there's no retirement age, right? It's your own practice, it's your own business. Plus, when they are older, they earn more money, yes, they have more assets, net worth, they are richer, like 8 figures net worth. But if you are still doing high risk procedures, there's always a risk of you getting into legal trouble, some complication, and you are being sued as a doctor when things go wrong, even you have the best intention and the best preparations. Because I think the society thinks that doctors are perfect and won't make mistakes. But hey, doctors are human too, right? They are not AI, right? They always try to do the best for the patients. I believe most doctors are like that. But some things, just out of your control, right? And when things go wrong, patients often want to, find someone to blame, pointing fingers, leading to all these increasing trend of legal cases against doctors or even the private hospitals. And hospitals, they are in a position whereby they can claim that, hey, we are not responsible, right? Because doctors are just independent contractors, renting a place in the hospital, and they are not full-time staff of the hospital. And that's why every single doctor clients of mine, they want to plan ahead properly, and they want to retire early in anticipation of reducing, their workload or their clinical hours once they have earned enough or before they reach a certain stage. And there's a story. I also remember there's a Zoom consultation session I had with a doctor, right? During the session, they said, hey, Liu, hold on, sorry, there's a call. And usually, look at the call, the emergency department call, and she answered the call. And apparently the nurse in the emergency department, like, saying that there's a case coming in, whether she want to take it. And, after she asked some questions, trying to understand the case from her office, she just say, probably no lah, right? Don't want to take in the case. They just tell the emergency department to, ask them to just refer that or send the patient to public hospital, your GH, right? That is again an example why doctors are also very cautious nowadays, right? Yes, doctors want to save lives, but in private hospital, they also don't want the risk of being sued or put in a compromising situation, especially with complex cases that, not to say that they cannot handle, but if it's emergency cases, they don't know what is the medical history, what's the condition, right? If it's not their own patient, right? And that's why they are very, very cautious. And doctors risk their physical, mental, and in this sense, even their financial well-being to treat patients. And sometimes I would say their efforts goes unrewarded. Why put themselves, right? If I'm a doctor, I would think like this. Why put myself in that kind of situation? If I can avoid it, like I can choose whether to take in this person as my patient or not, right? Just like me as a licensed financial advisor, I can choose whether to take in this person as a client, right? I want your business, but I don't need your business, right? And for doctors, I think they have sacrificed enough of their well-being in the early years with working like 36 hours in one stretch without sleep in public hospital. They have sacrificed their reputation and youth to get where they are when you are in the private sector. And it's just very natural. If you're a doctor, you don't want to lose it all just because of one decision to take in a very complex cases and you end up getting sued. So if you have a caring, compassionate, good doctor, I would say treasure him or her. I personally know doctors who have worked in public hospital, I know GH, and had these persistent heart palpitations and even like heart attacks, right? Before they turn 30 due to the stress and workload they have gone through in their years in the public hospital. Because people think doctors are robots without feelings, but the fact is they are human too. Don't you agree? If you are a doctor watching this, it's not surprising that doctors are in private sector, especially they are very careful about high risk cases. When you reach a certain stage in life, you just want to focus on giving your family a good life, right? And they have enough to retire, like send their children overseas or whatnot, right? They're very concerned about nowadays with these court cases. Very important to have enough indemnity insurance and setting up structures from financial planning standpoint to protect their wealth from being sued. If they got into a legal case in private hospital settings, nowadays patients can easily sue. And I've heard cases where fussy parents were not satisfied with the services in private hospitals, and they just took their kid, they shut their kids and say, am I not going to use hospital in Malaysia? And then on the same day, they just hire a private jet, go to Singapore to seek medical treatment. And this is again a story shared with me by a client of mine. And these are the kind of people that doctors in private hospitals are dealing with day in and day out.